to spend a lot of time on the on-road performance. This WK2 platform has been around for a while. The Trailhawk version has been around for a couple of years. There are probably dozens of videos on YouTube detailing the on-road performance, the ergonomics, and the interior features of this 2018 Trailhawk. What we're going to do is spend more time off-road, but what I can say now is that 300 horsepower V6 actually has nice power. You know, a lot of the reviews you'll see will be the Hemi V8, the SRTs, or the diesel. And the V6 kind of gets, you know, pushed to the side. But this V6 is no slouch. And my brother-in-law that owns this vehicle is telling me he's getting around 22 miles per gallon, a little bit less than he had hoped for in all-around driving. We're going to turn off on this local road right now, and we will discuss the off-road features of this vehicle. This particular Trailhawk is equipped with the optional air suspension. When the vehicle is traveling at high speed or on the highway, the suspension is in a lower state for better handling and fuel economy, but it can raise itself for off-road angles and clearance. The following are the published dimensions for the Trailhawk in off-road height 2, and it should be noted that Jeep lists these numbers with the front air dam spoiler removed. The approach angle is 36.1 degrees with a departure of 27.1. The clean undercarriage results in an excellent 10.8 inches of ground clearance. I'd consider this vehicle a long wheelbase at 114.8 inches, which results in a breakover angle of 24 degrees. How does this compare with the competition? The traditional competitor to the Jeep Grand Cherokee is the Toyota TRD Pro 4Runner, which despite having a better wheelbase at 109.8 inches, has less of a breakover at 26 degrees, an approach angle of 33 degrees thanks in part to the long snout, and the overhang results in a similar departure of 26 degrees, and the published ground clearance is 9.6 inches. So on paper, the Trailhawk competes quite well with Toyota's best 4Runner. Let's take a look at the back now. Tap that. It'll automatically load for us. Here's our back test. Fridge is already down to 30 degrees just on our short drive. Now the outlet is keyed with the vehicle off, and the fridge will not run. It'll only run when the vehicle's going. So if you're going to do some long-term overnight travel, you're going to need to figure out what to do about your wiring situation. As for us, day trips are fine. This'll keep it cold enough for what you're doing. Now you can see in the back I clearly have a lot more room than what I had on the Hummer H3. This is what I usually like to take on my day trips. I got my fridge here, I got some food and some other supplies in these two stacked Wolfpack cases, and then I've got these ammo crates which carry some recovery gear and some extra bottled water so we can put some jackets in. And you can see that I'm about right to the top of the back seats there, and you gotta watch this curve. The rear hatch barely fits with this right here, so you don't have much room to spare. You're not going to stack a third one on there. It's probably not the greatest cargo capacity for a vehicle this size, but it's much better than the Hummer H3 we had before. And you've got your tie downs. One thing I really like about these tie downs is this groove right there so that you can flick it up or even put the hook down in between it. So all in all, I'm actually quite pleased with the storage capacity back here. It's not going to rival a Land Rover Discovery or a Range Rover or a Land Cruiser, but it should be good, especially for day trips. You got your button right there, push that, and the hatch will come down for you. Rear seats actually have a lot of good room. You got cup holder, seat divider, climate control, USB ports, 120 volt, rear heated seats, and then this guy lever right there, I'm actually reclined. We'll pull it back. I can't go very far because of the fridge in the back, but you can see I'm reclined here, which is a really nice touch if you're going to have passengers in the back seat, kids, adults, whatnot, just to recline that and get to a good angle. The buttons are a pretty decent size with okay feedback. I'd say for the glove test, it actually works pretty well. It's a little bit My hand is a little bit cramped right here with the gloves. There's not enough spacing. The rear defroster to work. So kind of hit and miss. So we can turn the AC off. Let's do our air conditioned seats. Okay, so it does work, but I'd say it's actually really good for this class of vehicle. The ergonomics with the glove test are really quite nice. Here are the four-wheel drive controls here. You can see you can do your terrain select, rocks, mud, sand, snow, or auto. We're in auto right now. Shift to four-wheel low. This looks like, I don't know what Jeep calls it. I'll have to look it up. Crawl control, essentially. Speed control for the rocks. This is suspension down and up. We're in off-road mode 2 right now. Just click it down. Lower the vehicle back down. You see it flashing right there. I'm going to spin the dial to sand. Notice it shows the sand on the display here. There's snow. Auto, this is just the control of your traction control. This is mud. And rocks. Rocks, we got to shift to 4 low. So we'll go down, push that button to 4 low. To complete shift, put in neutral. Okay, we'll put it in neutral. Oops, we got it in drive. Hit 4 low. We're in 4 low right now. Shift over to rock, and there's rock. We'll play around with that later. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the features of the infotainment system, except what I do want to show you is under controls. Excuse me, not controls, it's under apps. Under apps, there is this section right here called off-road pages. We'll get that on, and that, similar to the Land Rover, if you're familiar with that, it shows the articulation, what gearing you're set in. We've also got, like Toyota, the pitch and roll screens, some accessory gauges for off-roading. Vehicle dynamics is the first one. There's just focusing on suspension, showing your ride height. I'll lift it up one more, show that I'm rising. The GPS coordinates down there, your altitude, really cool stuff. Up front, Jeep's new aggressive rounded front fascia, heavy duty painted recovery hooks. Let's take a look underneath. Things are actually tucked up really quite nice underneath. Right here, that's plastic. That one is metal, and it's metal all the way back. So you have to worry, typical of this design, of the control arms and the lower A arms on this type of front suspension. We'll go take a look at the rear, but all in all, that's pretty nice, flat and clean. Different toe plugs. Everything nice and tucked up. As for the seating and the ergonomics, the steering wheel has a really nice grip to it. It's leather. These are the sport seats. They hold you in. I am not bouncing on the trail at all, which is really nice. Now, there's one thing for those of you to notice who are considering this for overland duties is these sport seats, and I can kind of tell, but I haven't been in it very long. Down on the bottom pad is just not as cushy as I would like. On long trips, your rear end starts to get sore and stiff, whereas the lumbar and the support you have on your back is actually really quite good. And I'd be interested in trying out maybe the Overland or the limited package with the off-road options and see if the seats are replaced, if they would be more comfortable. We're cruising now on our local Forest Service road. We did take this vehicle on the 4-rated Miller Hill Trail. You can check out our trail review of that. When we took it on Miller Hill, there's a particular washed out spot that we were a little concerned about, and we actually slid off the line. We probably could have redone it and made it up and over. This vehicle at the time literally had the temporary tags on, and so when they slipped off, they were coming really close to hitting the side panels of the vehicle due to the breakover angle. And he didn't want to try it again, and they backed down, and I don't blame him with the vehicle being that new and without rock slide protection. I think we could have made it up, but with the vehicle being so new, we didn't want to attempt a retry. And they have the air suspension on this Trailhawk which is similar to what Land Rover uses. The idea being that when you're on the highway, the suspension can lower, you'll get better ride dynamics, better miles per gallon, and when you get off-road, you can raise it up, improve your approach angles and departure angles. The Land Rover systems require maintenance at around 100,000 miles. I'm sure this system will require the same. And with Land Rover, what they've done is they've cross-linked the air suspension, where one wheel maybe rises up, the air can go to the other side and drop that one down and hopefully get the wheels on the ground. And it's not perfect in practice, but it is really kind of amazing. My Range Rover has that system, and we were thinking this system would be comparable, but sadly, that's not quite the case. The articulation of this Trailhawk is significantly less, and that's half of the issue we had going up that Miller Hill obstacle, was the lack of articulation. The tires wouldn't bite.
Let it go, don't let off.
That's really kind of sad. These stock
Gentle
tires,
throttle.
they look good, but we didn't have the grip that we should have. So there is a little bit of concern if you want to do some harder core trails with the Trailhawk. Due to the lack of articulation, it's not quite as good as I would have liked. As for modifications, there's really not a whole lot of options to modify this vehicle. My brother-in-law is saying he's looking at Chief products. You've got a lip spoiler up front that you can remove, and then the bumper panel is really not that thick, and then you've got the bracketry and the bumpers for your radiator right up front. So that's, you kind of have that trade-off, having your equipment so close in exchange for a decent approach angle. But what they have on the market is you can get skid plates and plating for that area right there, which just covers it up. If you want to use this for overlanding, plan it out. If you're planning to use it for rock crawling, it's going to be expensive because you'll be fabbing everything. And with the independent front and rear, you're probably not even looking at it at all. You're just going to start with the Wrangler. That's just the way it is. Because a lot of people who are going to off-road the Grand Cherokee are going to have a second vehicle. That's the way it is. Whether it's a Land Cruiser or more than likely a Wrangler if you're a Jeep guy. My brother-in-law has a TJ Rubicon on, 33-inch tires, modest lift, and it goes anywhere. We did the Rubicon Trail, actually. He'll go up to seven rated trails in Moab, and it just works quite nice. The problem is the highway ride is not very good. As many of you with dedicated rock crawlers know, it's just not that comfortable. And so you're looking for something to chew up a lot of highway miles when there's easier trails, say a Colorado vehicle, which they're planning on using this for. And this vehicle would be perfect for that. Those trails up there in the San Juans, they're not as technical, and I think with some skid plating and some tires, you'd be able to hit a Mineral Creek Trail, which is the gateway to the Alpine Loop, which gives you Engineer Pass and Cinnamon Pass. One thing you should notice is the roof rails aren't rated for very much, and there have been reports of people actually bending the bracketry when they mounted a rooftop tent. So that's something to notice. You're not going to want to use the factory rails if you're going to use a rooftop tent. You can put lighter loads on and carry your tent in the back. That's possible. Or you're going to be looking at an aftermarket solution for your rooftop tent, and that includes the bracketry on the side, from what I understand, and not just using the existing stock rails. Now in 4-low, this vehicle is really comfortable. Again, the sports seats keep you in position. Steering wheel's got a lot of meat to it. The weight in the steering wheel is really how I like it. And the handling is really good. The size of the vehicle, the wheelbase, I feel like I can maneuver quite well. I must be used to vehicles with really big tires. I don't have anything on the accelerator, and the rock setting is really keeping me from shifting into second gear. I'm going to try the mud. Yep, there it goes. I shifted into second. So if you want to hold, if you're in drive and you want to hold that first gear for control, leave it in rock mode. The position is interesting. I'm not sure how to describe it. Maybe crossover-ish would be a way to put it. In this particular vehicle, I'm still sitting upright like in a full-on SUV, but my seating position, the way the steering wheel controls are, they remind me more of a sedan. The way the dash and the display sets up, it's very sedan-like, in that the hood is really high in my field of view. Whereas in a Land Rover, you're sitting above and you can see the hood down. This vehicle, I'm up hood high, but it's more sedan-like, whereas in the Hummer H3, you were still hood high, but it was more tank-like, if that makes any sense. This is a very nice, relaxed feel to it as I'm cruising on this Forest Service road. What I'm going to try to do is take this seat, I'm going to raise it up. I'm going to have to disconnect the seat belt. It's going to yell at me, and see if I can. The problem with this now, if I raise it up, let's get the warning light off. If I raise the seat up like I'm at right now, I can see over the hood the way I'd want to for obstacles, but the windshield rake is in the way. If I look forward down the road, I'm looking at the visor right here. So that's not going to work. So you're going to want to sit down and find that sweet spot. Don't get me wrong, it's a very comfortable ride. It's just you can't see the stuff immediately in front of you for the obstacles. You're going to be relying a little bit on your spotter, and it's directly in front. Whereas in, say, an FJ Cruiser or a Hummer H3, you're really more worried about the wings. It's these sides that you really can't see. In this vehicle, I can see the sides pretty well because of the rounded front and just looking out the window. Although this belt line's a little high too. So it's better than the Hummer H3 or the FJ Cruiser on the sides, but I'm not so sure if looking out the front offers you as much view of the trail. You have this fiberglass rear hatch with not a whole lot of insulation in the back. And I'm noticing this a little bit inside the cab as I'm driving, that I've got some noise coming through that back hatch from the rear suspension. I can hear that quite a bit. Whereas this front area is really quiet. You've got a lot of insulation up front to block the wind noise, but you can get some noise through the back transmitted through, say, a trailer or when you're off-roading going on the bumps. There's really no rattles and no squeaks. What I'm hearing is purely suspension travel and the bumps and the terrain below the tires, which is awesome considering my personal fleet of vehicles are 15, 16 years old. I'm always trying to fight rattles and squeaks. And this is one of those vehicles that I would recommend is a second vehicle for longer journeys. And if you have a more hardcore off-roader like a Jeep Wrangler, Toyota 4Runner, or something for the harder trails, I would almost consider looking into the Limited or the Overland, the Summit. They've got so many options. I would try to find one that maybe had a better seat, but still allowed you the low-range air suspension transfer case. You're gonna give up maybe some of your tow hooks or your aggressive bumper. If you're gonna go to the Chief products and get skid plates anyway, losing that front bumper is not going to be a big deal. Now, as far as engine choice is concerned, the diesel isn't warranted as long. The Hemi's got the power. This V6 though, man, for long distance overland style adventuring, I really don't know why you wouldn't want to consider that V6. Here we go, passing a guy in a pickup truck, and it just gets up and goes, and you've got the gas mileage. So I'm really wondering why you would want the V8 unless you're towing, and why would you want the diesel unless you're towing. This V6 probably the best bang for your buck, really. This is a nice vehicle, one that should be on your list, although I do miss kind of the articulation. So let's talk about the competitors. And for the price, you really have the Toyota 4Runner, and that's about it. Unless you want to move to the Jeep Wrangler for the hardcore. And that's really, those are the gold standard, and rightfully so. The new, especially the JL Rubicon, the JK Rubicon, they've been proven, and the 4Runner is proven itself reliable and able to handle the backcountry overlanding. So, you know, you're going to have to ask yourself, do you want to gain some on-road performance, which the Grand Cherokee gives you, and give up some of that body-on-frame rigidity and the solid rear axle and the setup of the 4Runner, or just the overkill of the Wrangler? And that's really it. We don't do ratings per se on this channel, because a vehicle is a very personal thing, I believe, and there are pros and cons to any vehicles, and what I use a vehicle for is different than what you use a vehicle for. So hopefully seeing some different angles underneath and hearing the pros and cons on road travel, off-road travel, this can help you make a decision when you're car shopping if the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk is right for you. Again, I do like the vehicle, and go to your nearest dealer, take a test drive, and see if you like it too. Thanks.